Five.
Woo.
All right, we are now live. Hello and welcome to Season of War. Tonight we have another discussion for you, not a battle report. I know I say this every time. It's probably so startling because every other video is a battle report. We do a lot of them, obviously, it feels like. But anyways, tonight we're talking about Boyz GT, the grand tournament we were at. It was a major, actually, 66 players. Last weekend we were there in Rochester, New York. So across the border in foreign territory. Yeah, enemy territory at that.
Yeah, it was not that far, like we said before. So it was only like what 2.5 hours or something. So
Yeah.
3 hours.
Oh yeah. Yeah, and want to say hey, quick hey to everyone that's joined us in the chat so far. I'm sure we'll get as we get going, we'll get more of the crew piling in. But hey to everybody already. I see Joshua in there. Joshua was the TO of Du Bois, so shout out to Joshua. It was an awesomely well run event. Had a blast. I always say it. I'm gonna it's one of my kind of must attends every year. That and Grand Clash in Quebec are like just two of the best events that love it. But I mean, really, I want to go to all of it. We all want to go to every event we can at this rate.
Amen.
There's Emma's in there with a nice shout out for Barl.
Yeah, it's just got born at the Boys, and
so
will forever be known as Barl, I guess.
Yeah. I guess quick overview, quick points. Anyone wanting to jump in, talk about the event? Carl, do you have or does anyone have the missions up that we played?
I can remember them.
All right, Carl.
Off the top of my head. So round 1 was Device. Round 2 was not Feral Foray, but the other one that's very, very similar to it.
Power Numbers.
Power Numbers, correct. Round 3 was...
You're doing great, Carl. You're doing great.
God. Round 3 was...
Veins of Gur.
Was it Veins of Gur?
Yeah, Star Strike.
Okay, yeah, Veins of Gur. Round 4 was... Okay, no, I just completely lost track of everything, I guess.
First Blood.
No. Yeah, it was First Blood, and then it was... there was Power Struggle in there, was not?
Power Struggle was last.
Yeah, okay. I was like, I don't remember the order of things. But yes, that was the 5 missions. It was an interesting mission pack. There's missions that weren't played as often as other missions. Like there was no Savage Gains, which we usually see. And the interesting point of it as well as we talked about it in our list review show is we didn't know the missions beforehand. We actually didn't even know the missions for day 2
until the start of day 2.
Day 1, until the start of day 2.
At the morning of,
yeah. So we could kind of tell who our opponents was for day 2. So trying to game plan for your first opponent on day 2 was a little bit difficult, not knowing the mission. Into it.
So that's a couple of good points from that, and we obviously talked about it in advance, but in hindsight, and again, this is just our opinions and our thoughts and kind of what we like. How did you guys feel about not knowing the missions before, with the note that the missions were chosen randomly?
Oh, I actually did not know that. The GHB 2021 mission packs fairly even across the board. Like everything is fairly, most armies can play in those missions. The 3 ones that are a problem that I see is Apex Predators, which require you to have multiple heroes. That's the one that we were really afraid of. Well, some of us more than others. The other one was actually Power in Numbers was actually a very, very
one we've talked about a lot in our battle reports.
Yeah, it's highly I don't know what the word for it is. It's it favors some armies rather than others.
It depends. Yeah, it can be very Interesting.
Volatile.
Volatile.
Very-
Volatile.
Yeah.
Yeah. And then the third one is something like Feral Foray or something like that has like 6 missions or so could potential. And another one would be Tooth and Nail.
Yeah.
If you brought an army that deep strikes as your main tactic, if
sure.
that mission was there and you weren't aware of it.
Yeah, so
then
that
would
just
be some issues.
looking at that stuff, it's like for my list at least with Draco Sally's, like there's many that aren't going to be great for that. So obviously, the hero one, but as well Tooth and Nail, not being able to deep strike.
Yeah, makes
That,
it really risky list building, right? Like it almost, I feel like, and I didn't, like Carl, like you said, I didn't realize it was random until during the event. I think Josh or someone mentioned it. I think actually in the recap email that they sent out. But like, if I had have known they were completely random, I probably that's going to impact my list building, right? Like, there's a chance that Apex Predators is coming up. That's maybe I don't take Lumineth, right? So it's not necessarily a good or bad thing. It has an impact one way or another.
For sure.
Josh just answered.
Yeah.
Said the missions were chosen by the dice gods with 2 missions excluded: Tooth and Nail and Mark and Predator.
Okay.
Yeah. To answer your question though, Jordan, like I know like just with prep. So when we played a lot of TTS tournaments, was the players, like if you know in advance, you could like do your whole deployment on TTS, have exactly what you're going to do. You know what I mean? Like it rewards players that like, I guess, want to really prepare every single mission. You could take a picture, you could write it down, but as well, that's why I kind of liked when you didn't know, because then it comes down to, making decisions. And we play a lot on the channel. Like we play all of the missions. So, we've played all the missions at least 2 or 3 times.
And so often we'll play missions even if it's a bad situation for us because we just do it randomly, right? So our battle reports are the same way, but it can skew things sometimes, right? Like if Apex Predators showed up, I would have just been, unless I got a really fortunate matchup, my list would have just been kind of shit out of luck.
Yeah. I think it rewards a different type of player rather than others. Like when you know the missions beforehand and you can plan, it rewards those people who have that
organization
scale,
yes.
that skill. When it's random like this and it just shows up, it rewards more of the tactical side of things where you have to adapt to the situation. So I'm definitely a person who likes to prepare and sometimes over prepares. So
I agree. I'm similar. It's like I feel more comfortable, just trying to having a little more structure. But again, that's everyone's different. POs are very welcome to do whatever they would like.
Of course.
So just our thoughts on it, kind of made it interesting, which is never a bad thing. And the other big note, I think, was scoring. So here, scoring was normal for like victory points in game, all completely normal, no comp or anything. But it was battle points that were used rather than straight victory points for tiebreakers. And the battle points were determined like 25 points for major win, 5 for major loss, and then 1 point per battle tactic completed, and 5 for your grand strategy. So you can score anywhere from 25 to 35 for a major win. And in the end, that being, a big part of tiebreakers meant the generals, again, who could complete more battle tactics in grand strategies, were winning out on those tiebreakers. And maybe this is just coming from the type of player I am, I like that element of how it rewarded to some extent
the game.
Generalmanship of like being able to do it. Now, obviously, everyone's in situations at times where you can't do that. Even if you win or lose a game, you're going to drop some and whatnot. But I like the tiebreakers going to be. I like that element. So I mean,
same.
Maybe it's because it plays into a strength of mine where I've played enough games that I can usually worm my way into scoring them pretty well.
You like to mitigate chance, Jordan. You like to play armies that do well. Yeah, that can do that, which
Yeah.
makes sense because then exactly it comes more into being able to get your tactics and then denial becomes massive as well.
Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Oh, for sure. Yeah, but otherwise, scoring. What did you guys think? I liked it.
I love
This
it.
is this is the second event that we did this type of scoring, and I really really like it.
Yeah, second because our local RTT took the
Yeah,
system and did it.
and yeah, we tested it, or uh, a different Josh, a local Josh, Grant and Josh ran it at the RTT he ran, a week or
Yeah,
two before. So yeah, we got to test it out, and actually we're there's a GT uh, this coming
next week.
weekend.
Yeah,
Yeah, in London, Ontario, that we'll be at that also is using the scoring
using that.
system. So
Mhm.
I think a lot of people are seeing the value in balancing, like Josh did for this pack. I was talking to him about it, of like trying to balance for um just this.
Monster scoring and that sort
Yeah,
of thing.
yeah. So I do like that element. Um, I thought it did a good job. All the events, like if you use VP as a like tiebreaker differential, Guardians are going to be at the top of every
We talk about it every
every
single time.
bracket. Yeah. So it's nice to see a little more variety and
Yep,
it be
for sure,
more on the player than the list.
for sure.
But I guess any other notes about the event before we jump into things?
No, it was a great event overall. We stayed
Yeah,
at the hotel, so it's like
made it
right
easy.
around the corner. Yeah, tables were great. You know,
The TOing was amazing. I'll say that right away. Like I had a couple issues in my games, not issues, but like came to like finishing our game or finishing a turn or like things that I just love to see when TOs take charge and say no. Like if you're finished your game, in another 5 minutes, like make sure you finish your game. Don't pull the dice down and have to speculate stuff. Like
Yeah,
just little decisions like that are I just love when TOs like make decisions like that
yeah,
because
I agree. And
yeah.
encouraging making sure games are finished. I know Josh was saying that he's thinking of moving to 3 hour rounds next year, um, which is I'm completely fine with. I think I'm generally okay with 2.5.
yeah,
But it all depends on matchups sometimes and missions and whatnot, situational.
army
But
you play, that sort
Both
of thing.
both players, yeah, exactly.
yeah, but I guess let's just jump into round ones. We'll go through our games again. We're gonna try and highlight just kind of like our thoughts going into the matchup.
Mhm.
Not we don't want to go round by round, but maybe two or a couple key points about the game that were like big moments, and
Mhm.
then kind of our takeaways from the game, what we learned, that kind of thing. Carl, do you want to kick us off? Then I'll go, and
Yeah.
Ridge, you can bring it home.
So I'll kind of just recap kind of the list that I took for those of you that didn't watch the list review show. My list was a very standard Iron Jaws list with two Maw Crushers. One was a very very offensive one with Destroyer and Faston. The other one was Amulet of Destiny and Smelly. And then the rest of my list was basically filled out by Gorgruntas, as well as a couple of wizards. Most notably, my general was the Weird Knob Shaman with Master of Magic for the Rural Cast and Great Green Hannah Gork. And an important thing to note about my list was my grand strategy of Wa. So I would needed to get a battle line unit, so one of the pig units, or my general in my opponent's zone. So my first round opponent was Chris Courtney. He was a 40K player. Couple games on his belt of AOS, but you could see um, the fundamentals and how he plays, and he quickly identified kind of the matchup between myself and him. I'm so fast, and I can pin him um on a mission like the Vice. I could take away so many of his pieces if I was getting to go. So basically he took his big hammer units of Kurnoth hunters and Sylvaneth and basically just shoved his whole army into my throat. Turn one, he took first and he just shoved the whole thing in. The only things that were kept back were some units of tree revenants who could, deep strike and teleport later on, and potentially, take objectives later on. And it actually proved to be an incredibly tough match Sylvaneth has so many pluses to save.
Yeah.
Tree Lord Ancient, you know, Mystic Shield, Finest Hour. You have Kurnoth Hunters can root. Like they had so many things that it became a sort of kind of stalemate match in the middle of the board. Um, I think it came from my experience playing the Vice so many times. I planted one of my Maw Crushers fairly early on into the center objective, and it basically came to him attempting to kill that Maw Crusher, and that Maw Crusher basically just standing on that point and just slaying everything around him. Uh, it was the most powered up I've gotten the Maw Crusher ever. It was +9 attacks by the end of the game, and I actually had forgotten about Destroyer as well till the end of the game as well. So I activated Destroyer with 17 attacks at 6 damage, which felt really, really good. The big thing in this matchup as well is he retreated a Tree Lord Ancient on one of the turns, doubled me, and was able to kill my general, able to kill all my Gorgontas. So while I scored all my battle tactics, I didn't score my grand strategy. I made a mistake of leaving my general a little bit too exposed. So I was down quite a few points, actually 5 points. I only scored 30 that round, as opposed to the 35 that most of these guys scored on their first game. But he was a very, very good player. Sylvaneth, as I don't want to say the word not competitive again because here
Yeah.
I go. As
It's
you
not
know,
it's not
as
a A or
a
A tier
top
army.
tier army, it gives Ironjaw some problems with the amount of save stacking that it has.
If you
With
can't do
you having
mortals,
with
yeah.
-1, -2 rend. I mean, a pig list that features 21 pigs or something would take care of list pretty easily because of the mortals on the charge. But one that was a little bit more traditional, like myself, kind of struggled.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um,
So yeah.
Josh mentioned Chris Courtney is the founder of Du Bois, actually.
Oh shoot!
So
I didn't know.
yeah, you beat the man at his own event. How mean.
Super duper nice guy. Like everybody I played over the weekend.
Yeah, nice. But yeah, major win for you there. Just dropping your grand strategy.
Yep.
But
I will say that I left a Kurnoth Hunter on 1 wound, and that nearly cost me the game. So
nice, almost. Well, so you did leave it on 1 wound, but it didn't cost
I
you.
did. It didn't cost me the game.
Well,
Yeah.
Carl, I stopped doing that.
Yeah.
So for me, I played round one. Again, this was on the Vice. I played, got matched up against Bill Souza. So it's like
Oh yes.
right into it. Obviously, Bill is an incredibly good player, well known. Had amazing success at tournaments, often running um, very off-meta lists and armies, and this weekend was no exception. He was running Night Haunt, and yeah, he ran 8 units of min units of Hex Wraiths and allied in Mega Gargant, so he was just using the Hex Wraiths to harass and board control and mortal wound stuff down and hopefully roll lots of tens. But on the Vice, so this mission, which is Long Ways, we were far apart, especially against my army and what it does. Unfortunately for Bill, I felt pretty confident going into the matchup that it was pretty heavily in my favor. Just the style of armies, the mortal wounds I do. Basically, my plan going into it was I just, stick to my game plan, which is, be a slow moving castle. Don't try and overreach. Don't, and like teleport the sentinels up to shoot something down or anything. Well, I was only shooting, early turns, what kind of Bill was giving to me. I guess key moments in this were Bill won turn 2 and 3 priority. 2, he gave it to me when I was only shooting at Hex Wraiths and not doing a ton. And then bottom of 2, he came down to push one of my objectives on the Vice and then doubled into 3, so held it for 2 turns. And the turn he came down, he got 2, had 3 units in charge range. The first one charged in on a 10, so attacked right away, but then I unleashed hell and shot it off. And the second unit also rolled a 10. So finished off that first unit. It was just 10 wardens on an objective. And so he took the objective, held it, and then one priority and held it again in 3. So he was actually ahead in points, trying to in that early to mid game. But then turn 3, I was able to take it back, push the center. I took down the Gargant on turn 3, which was big also. Just the fact that I was able to, I think I put a bunch of my shooting into him and then charged the 20 blocker wardens to finish the Gargant off. If Bill had have won priority again, it would have been close score-wise. He would have been able to, it would have been a real close game. But I won turn 4 priority, so doubled Bill back, and it was just again too much. Like my army is perfectly made to counter Night Haunt. He doesn't. I don't care about Rend, and he doesn't like mortal wounds. So
and you have the range on device, which is so far that again, like we just moved up in the castle. Yeah, you were 2 tables down from me, and I kept looking over. I should have been a little bit more focused on my game, but I was like rubbing my hands. I'm like, ooh, this is round 1.
See it. We talked about Bill's list before on our preview show. It was one that, like, especially with Bill as a player behind it, we knew there was potential for him to be very successful. And this situation was just like bad mission, bad matchup. So
it happens.
For sure. That's a lot of it, especially top tables. But that's so I got the major win. I stored all 5 of my battle tactics and my grand strategy, so I was sitting on max points after round 1.
Mm-hmm. You're muted, by the way.
Yeah.
Wow. Okay. Awesome.
Good start.
Yeah, the big line of 2021. You're muted. Yeah, you guys were beside me as well, so that's what was awesome. Just seeing you that game, because Bill's obviously just amazing. So it was cool just to see. But my game was a little bit different. So you guys were like quick and got going, and everything was deployed, all that. My game was a lot more like we slowly got everything ready and took a bit of more time to get through it. And I just know when that happens, it's just if it's going to be a longer game. So I was just trying to be quick, and deployment took a little bit longer. I was playing it was a Hallow Heart list with like a Griffin, 6 demigriffs, 30 handgunners or crossbows, the Hurricaneum, and then a couple like just chaff units. So after we got all deployed and everything, I was 2 drops, so I could have picked, and I made an error right away. Like I should have just taken first, and just knowing that it might have been a bit longer of a game or just a lot of things going on, just been able to nuke a few units and just start the process. But I was just thinking of the double, so I'm like, if I give it away, he's not going to be able to get into very many things. I measured everything out where I think it's 22 away. I was a couple inches off the line, so the Griffin needed like an 11-inch charge or so to get in. So I'm just like, okay, for game 1, whatever. I'm like, go ahead, let him go. So kind of just moved everything up. I don't want to go fully play-by-play, but it's just insane what actually happened. I've never had this many successive things happen to me in like a first turn. So essentially, the Griffin got into my Source Guard, which were by my temple, and then piled into my temple. And he blew up the temple with the monstrous action. So he rolled an 11 to get in, first of all. So already I'm just like, oh my God, okay, this is whatever. So it blows up the temple. I have my Skink Priest rolls a 1. My Star Seer rolls a 1. So they both die outside of the temple. The Hurricaneum, which he had just exactly toward where my temple was able to move and then shoot the 2-up D3s. And so he did that as well. Rolled that 8 mortal wounds, killed my Ashwolf Bear. And then he piled in the Griffin into my Bastiladon. And on a 3-up save, like should not even take whatever, like maybe like 4 or 5 wounds. He puts both beak attacks through. I roll a 1 and a 2, so it does 8 damage to that with 2 damage from something else. So exactly kills my Bastiladon. So but into my turn 1, I had lost the Bastiladon, the Starseer, Skink Priest, both to the 1s, and the Ashwolf Bear. And another little thing was like I could have he incorrectly played just a little endless spell, and I kind of was like, yeah, that's fine. Like you could have moved it over there and let him kind of move it so that he could get it in, which in hindsight, like it destroyed my Ashwolf Bear and possibly could have made me lose the game right away.
Giving him a take back really cost you.
Yeah, right away, and it was like we just got like to the tournament. I was just in good, yeah, whatever. Either way. So after all of this happens, and then like I was saying, because deployment took a long time, it was like I just knew that this was going to be a long process. I played my slan pretty carefully, like pretty far away, because I just obviously when I'm dropping down the sallies. So then, anyways, my turn. I drop down the sallies, shoot a bunch of stuff. Don't win the double, so he comes back top of 2, and then eventually just grind it out. And then turn 3 or end of 3 going into 4, we had like 5 minutes left or something, like not much time left. And the TO came over and we explained everything, and he's like, "Yeah, for sure, finish your." We're going to lunch anyways. Like if it's going to take another 15 minutes, you can finish your game. So we finished out turn 3 by 3. I killed like the knights and the demigriff, and then slowly made the push like to his side of the board, teleported a unit behind him. And then I won, I think, turn 4 prio, and then I was able to come back and win. But he was up pretty much the whole game, so I just know it was a bitter kind of moment, because he had me kind of pinned, and where you know what I mean? If it was dice down, he would have won. But that's
yeah. Largely, so, you obviously, I know, again, being at the next table beside you, you were trying to move things along quickly.
So much, and it was like I
because you knew that's your army, right? And like you said, you knew from deployment that you could just get a feeling from the game that it was going to be dragged out a little bit. In the way, yeah. So that's always tough. But again, props of Josh for making sure that games are properly finished, because that's the difference, right? You know, I know,
and I hate accusing people of like taking too long or like things like that. Like I understand, like especially when we're playing the game, but you know, hero phases and even deployment and those things, when it gets to be an hour, over an hour, and you know, an hour and a half, like it was just one of those situations where I was just getting that feeling like, oh, like I'm trying to be as fast as I quick and be quick and everything. So thank God that all of that happened, and then I was able to come back and then table in turn 5, and then we went and talked out with the TO, and so it was one of those games that's just like, it sucks that that kind of thing happened, but props to Josh.
And actually, your initial comments about contrasting it with my game with Bill, I do want to give a big shout out to Bill. Playing both Bill and my round 5 opponent Mike, those had to be 2 of like the best played games I've enjoyed at events outside from our team, where we're really good at having really tough competitive games, but doing it with a smile on our face and enjoying the game when we play against one another on the team. Harder to find that where you're like genuinely enjoying playing someone in like a top level game. And both Bill and Mike, all my opponents were great, but I think Bill and Mike really exemplified kind of like the ideal attitude, and maybe even saying this is something I want to be work harder at, of being always being the best opponent I can and whatnot. And they were both such a joy to play.
Yeah, so. And I didn't know how to explain this. I was trying to think of ways of how to explain this game, and I'm just like, it's just like whatever. It took a long time. Like things happened, and it was like I thought at that point, I'm like, I'm done. Like this is I'm going to lose this game, which I should easily win, or like I mean, in that situation, the list is so strong, and like So anyway, got the win, finished it. And then, I don't know, Carl, if you want to go on game 2.
Cool. So we were all on 1-0. And Ridge, you got all your battle tactics, and you were max points as well.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah, so I was at the bottom of the winner's pile, I think, going into round 2, seeing that my weird knob shaman died. He actually hasn't died very much in any of my games. Just this weekend, somehow people just kept reaching out and touching him. My round 2 was against Miss Emma Mangles, who was running a very competitive Dread Saurian
Seraphon list,
Thunder Lizard list. Would just like to say that I did pick her for my fluff choice during the review show, but she did, I think, the best out of any of my picks. So shout out to her. I think the only it's Seraphon is such a bad matchup for Iron Jaws, whether it's Starborn or Coalesce. Coalesce because of the -1 damage. You have, such high damage attacks that just get lessened by the Coalesce. It just basically means your War Chanters are just nullifying their allegiance ability. Everybody runs a Slann, so Comet's Call means you're dealing damage to all your small heroes, and by turn 2 or turn 3, all those heroes are dead, and so you don't have your buff pieces. And so the only thing that saved my bacon, pun intended, in this one was the mission. Because Battle Line takes precedence over everything else. Emma basically gave me first. I was able to aggress really hard upon her. And I really needed to win the priority from 1 to 2 because that's when burning is basically available. And so, I just pushed my whole army into her army, trying to kill all of her battle line. Ended up winning the priority, burning most of the objectives. There was a couple of moments that were very, very scary. I had a Gore Grunter survive with 1 wound on her second turn. And so turn 3, I was able to retreat onto another objective and burn it.
Nice.
And basically with all of... So Karma turns around, she left something with 1 wound. And that probably won me the game. And so basically, because of the mission, I was able to take it out. Gore Grunters are very good, very fast,
Great battle
hit
line.
very hard, are great battle line. They're 5 wounds piece with a 4-up save. She ended up tabling me turn 4. And we were discussing it afterwards. If it was any other scenario, I would have been in trouble. Deep trouble.
Yeah.
So I lucked out playing Emma on this specific mission.
And an example of why that mission can be polarizing, in terms of like just being able to, based on priority, burn a bunch of the objectives and then kind of coast even if you get smashed on the table.
Yeah. The thing that really surprised me about Emma's list is the Dread Saurian was okay. It doesn't do like a 400 or 525 points worth of output or defense. It's not there. But what really surprised me was the Engine of the Gods. It tanked my defensive Maw Crusher for 5 combat rounds. It just sat there and I couldn't kill it. And Maw Crushers usually kill everything it goes into. So I was very, very surprised that thing just survived until the end of the game. So I pulled out the victory. I was a little bit more reserved with my Weird Knob Shaman, so he survived this round. But I did fail a battle tactic, and so I was really on the bottom of the winner's pile after round 2. So mission good, army bad.
Yeah.
which just evened everything out for me.
And as I said, so this was an example of, I guess, how polarizing the mission can be. To your favor, in that matchup. Mine was the opposite experience. We saw how polarizing it was to my detriment. So my round 2, again, playing power numbers, was against Dean Bills, who was playing whatever the 4th sub-faction.
Waddle's Claw.
Waddle's Claw.
The Season of War killer.
So he was playing Quaddle's Claw and Seraphon. A bunch of Source Knights. He had the Starvet on Carnosaur. I pretty much knew knew what the list does. Playing Ridge and my brother enough with Seraphon, and just knowing that it's all about the Source Knights and whatnot. So I felt comfortable going into the match. Ridge also likes to overhype us. Every opponent, Ridge is like, "Oh, you're gonna smash him! You're gonna smash him!" So he sends it. Ridge sends us into every matchup overconfident.
Which is great.
Not true.
But I felt comfortable going to that match. I knew the mission was what it was, but felt comfortable. I gave first. doubled 1 into 2, took off his Oracle on Troglodon and his Starvet on Carnosaur turn 1, killed 8 of the 10 Saurus Knights from the big block turn 2, and was pretty well positioned. Again, I do have to spread out wider than, because of the 3 objectives, wider than I typically like to. But really, this was a case of was hugely up on the board, dominating the board. Got a little, I think I got, in hindsight, I would say I got too comfortable just with the board state, and I took turn 3 knowing that Dean was going to get to burn 1. He had burned 1 of mine on bottom of 2, just to get rid of it. So I'm like, I know he's going to burn 1 more. I can instantly teleport and get 1, and I had a good play at a second one of his. So I was expecting to hold 3 out of the remaining 4, taking the turn. I only ended up getting 2, just a miss, a little fluky, and then a misplay on my part in hindsight. But that meant, we were pretty even at in points. That I might have been up 1 or a couple actually just from monsters and battle tactics and how finish things off. But the big thing is, bottom of 3, because I took priority and didn't take two of his objectives, Dean burned his 2 for 4 points each, and then 1 priority into turn 4, snuck 1 guy, killed my warden unit exactly to the man, so I had no battle line and only Techless on an objective. He got 1 Saurus Knight on there, or Saurus Guard, just by like 1 millimeter to tag that objective, burned it, which denied me the 8 points for it, which I was relying on. So like Carl said, it's like, it just like, he has 3 units left, but because he could do that in that sequence and you can burn multiple, and he won priority, so it basically was like that was his only shot. But full credit to Dean. Dean was an amazing player, very, very well practiced and knew his stuff, and he put himself in that position, and that's not an easy thing to do in a matchup where you're not
2 big pieces, right?
Where it's pretty lopsided. To put himself in that position to capitalize if things don't, if he gets the luck that he needs. But so it's not an easy thing to do, to put himself in that position, but he did. So full credit to Dean. Earned that win, and caught me sleeping where I got a little too comfortable. I think just with the matchup and board state. Obviously hindsight's 2020, but so little things I could have done, but it was a tough loss to take, especially with all that considered. In the end, I again scrapped for every point, got every battle tactic. I was doing extra ones with monsters. I went for even like Slay the Warlord, turn 4 to do it for an extra point with Techless.
Yeah.
And it also denied him his grand strategy. So that was actually a big thing. I denied a grand strategy and maybe 1 or 2 battle tactics in that game, where I stored, my max points for a loss. So the 5 points, and then 5 for grand strategy and 5 for battle tactics. So yeah, tough
so
game,
could have been why he played Carl then later.
Exactly why he played Carl later.
Yeah, big props to him. That's the one with Kotal's Claw. That's a tough sub-faction. Well, not Seraphon's still obviously very good, the -1 damage. But situationally, that's, man, and that's what I know you guys both said. He was very seasoned with them. Funny that Techless loses an objective again to 1 single Seraphon battle line model, like the skink in our battle report.
It's bane of my existence.
Yeah. Cool. Yeah. So I guess I'll jump into mine then. Funnily enough, I played Duncan Bill, so his brother. And man, was he ever awesome. He very, very funny. It was one of those times when as soon as you get to the table, just immediately laughing, joking around about stuff. So we had, so he was a 1-drop non-techless Lumineth list. So playing Jordan a bunch with Lumineth, I should by now be smart and know what Sentinels do and not be risky at all. I was a little bit risky still, and it almost bit me in the butt. So with deployment, I measured everything obviously 36, knowing he can add 6 inches of range or get speed of fish for the double move. And just as I was saying with Jordan, there's a good chance I'm going to at least unbind one spell that is going to make it so he can't shoot every single thing at my slan. So this has finally fully taught me that I, from now on, am never going to ever like think that, which I know I know I shouldn't, and I get that, but I just don't want to put myself way back on the board and then not be whatever. So essentially, he shot off my guard he had 20 sentinels, 20 sentinels. The 120 pack of sentinels shot my guard, and the other 20 shot my slan. He did deep strike the lore master, cast lambent light on like a 10 or 11, whatever, like got a good roll. And then shot my slan with all my 6-ups, with all my my saves, everything. I think he killed him to the wound. And I needed 1/6 on 2 dice for him to survive. Didn't roll it, so he died. I had like all my salamanders up in the sky, which again, looking back, I've learned a lot. This is the first tournament I've played Draco's Tail with Sally's, so learned obviously just at least deploy 1 unit on if anything could happen to your slan. So anyways, so I'm thinking already like, oh my God, I can't believe this happened. And then I'm like, oh my God, I have the Gobby's pendant, the 4-up, on your guy comes back to life. So of course he's laughing too, just like, no way. Like it's like one of those moments. So I roll a 5. So the slan comes back to life with 4 wounds.
Yeah. So you mitigated everything. Yeah.
So mitigated. Well, the guard still died. So then he charged in the lore master, which was outside 3, right? Because he can deploy into your zone. So then he obviously charged him into the slan, but he had 7 wounds with all defense and whatever. So wasn't able to kill him. So then my turn, I was able to drop all my salamanders down. I was just like over the moon that I thought I was like, this was like the game was gone.
Yeah.
And then because of the mission, it was power numbers. Yeah, it's 6 points. He did have Gotrek as well. So he was running non-techless with Gotrek. So there was a lot of big terrain. So I knew where Gotrek was going. I've just came off of GT playing them. Like I've played a bunch of games with them. So I just obviously just kind of stayed outside of his 16-inch bubble. And I was able to just eventually get my salads around the other side and then slowly nuke down the sentinels and kind of just position properly. But so I won, I think it was in 4, but one of those moments again, that is just like, things like that shouldn't have happened because I could have prepared better and just put my slan completely out of 42 or completely out of range, which I know you've told me.
We played at the RTT like the weekend before that we were talked about earlier, Rock Gang, and I literally me and Ridge played on like Ridge. I'm advising you not to put him. Now, in our game, I didn't shoot the slan. I didn't go for the play or anything, but just like it was, I knew there's the chance, right?
Yeah. And yours is when you have portal or like, I know with that you're playing Emerald Lifestorm, so you wouldn't have been able to do the portal with the Lambent Light. And
I teleport.
You'd have to teleport the horses and that, and then they would have to cast. Which
and same thing. It takes 3 spells or 2 or 3 spells to line up with like Power of Fishes and whatnot, like you said, Lambent Light, teleport, or spell portal. You expect to unbind one of those
with a reroll too,
but it's dice, right? If you don't.
Yeah, 100%, and that's what it's like. I know, and that's where. And then also, I have a 4-up to come back. So there's a lot of different
that's
things.
Safety.
Yeah.
But the thing I want to ask is, was there any benefit to putting your slan within range?
Yeah, so pretty much just to stay with the guard and keep I could have left everything like super far back, but I wanted as many things on back in my middle point.
What if you had put your slan in the corner with the guard surrounding him, and then had just teleported him later on a later stage to put him?
That takes away. That teleport is so huge to teleport 2 Sallys or something else. But
no, because you put your Sallys in with your slan, right? To deploy them out, just so that you're not within the.
If you put all 6 up.
All 6 up, yeah.
Bottom one, telly the slan, and then drop them all down. No, I know, and that could have definitely been a way like more safer play, which it ended up working out. But no, I
got the win in the end.
I got the win in the end, and like I said, super funny, awesome dude. Like we were both kind of laughing about it, about everything happening and whatnot. But
must be in the name.
Yeah.
But so you guys were both on 2-0. And I was on 1-1 after round 2. But let's jump into round 3.
Yeah, round 3 was Old Star Strike, Veins of Gur. My third round opponent was pretty much a mirror match. It was Steven Mata. I think he's in the chat. S Mata 84. I think that's him. And yeah, so basically, I knew exactly what his army did, and he knew exactly what my army did as well. But he was lower drop, so he had given me the turn. And so my plan was to be you know as aggressive as possible with the pigs and put the Maw Crushers in reserve in case I win the turn from 1 to 2. And if he doubles me, he has to deal with the pigs and then try to get into the Maw Crushers later on, in which I can counter punch later on. I think the game boiled down to two things. I think my Maw Crushers were more optimized uh, in the sense that the artifacts and the mount traits that I had were more for fighting melee armies. Steven had an arcane tome on one of them with Basham Lads, which is an 8 to cast, and it's a great spell because it gives +1 to wound to everything wholly within 15, which is amazing for Iron Jaws. They hit and wound on 2s. But and yeah, like he's saying in this chat, I also had 6 pigs in Bloodtooth. When you charge or you fight, you're able to normal move them if they're not within 3, or charge again and tag something else. And there was a few key moments where there was a pig that was left with 2 wounds or 3 wounds here and there, and I played for a more longer game. And yeah, I had 12 pigs. He had 6 with 10 brutes, which was the list I was running previously. And he was never able to put the brutes in a position to affect the game until round 5. And in that sense, it was already too late to put them in position. Not having Master Magic means you're relying on a 7 to cast, just rolling dice, and if your opponent has an unbind, it's incredibly dicey. So I got out of there with a major win. Steven, I think, took some good lessons from kind of the IJ matchup. He was playing the previous iteration of my list, and so I knew exactly how to counter it. And so yeah, I came out with a win in round 3. I think it was just literally switching the brutes for pigs would have been a much closer matchup.
Yeah,
it's all about delivery system with Iron Jaws. Like, how do you deliver your tools to the fight? A lot of people say Mighty Destroyers is enough to get you in places, but 18 plus a charge is not big enough to affect the whole board. If you need to switch from one side and then shift all the way to the other, you're unable to do that. Especially with brutes. Although brutes are very, very good at killing everything they touches. So.
Yeah, but and that's the trade-off, right? More killing, less maneuverability.
Correct. So yeah, I came out with a win there.
Nice. Well, so you were on 3-0 day 1. My round 3, again, this was the old Star Strike, whatever it's called now.
Veins
of Dur. I was playing against Sean Allen, so he had Stormcast. Pretty typical what you would expect with the new Stormcast. A unit of 4 Fulminators on draft lines, or Dratoths. 15 Judicators, which are like the other option instead of 6 Launch Strikes. The re-rolling Teleport, Priest dude, and exactly what you expect, right?
Yeah.
So big thing. We were both 1 drops. He won the roll off. So again, I've played Stormcast 1 or 2 games now. I know what they do. It's if you play them once or twice, you're gonna know what they do, and they're gonna teleport, shoot you in the hero phase, and then shoot you again in the shooting phase. Which is exactly what Josh did, and shot off Tactless top of 1, having taken first turn. So
yeah,
it's
actually a funny moment. because Jordan and I were
We're
in.
table side by side on tables again.
Yeah, I look over. Jordan just lifts Techless. We make eye contact, and he puts him off the table. And I'm
Yeah.
like, "What happened?" They were just like finishing deploying, and he already like lifts Techless and puts him off off the edge.
Yeah. So that again, it's one of those Stormcast is like Gardens in a way. You just know what they do. They're honest about what they do. They just do it efficiently. So from there, I knew I just had to, because Judicators were in the middle of the board. He had 10 Liberators or Vindictors in front of them, Fulminators off to the one side. Basically, it was like, I have to smash the 10 Libs and the 15 Judicators in behind. Hope I get the double so I can deal with the Fulminators. And that's the game. So turn one, I killed probably, between shooting and combat, I killed probably, I kill all the Liberators, the unit of 10, and like 5, or sorry, there's only like 5 Judicators left. So I take a huge chunk out of his army. Again, this is with my 30 Wardens and Sentinels doing most of the work. I had Dawn Riders and Lord Regent, but they weren't actually in combat afterwards, I don't think. So that was the big story. I lose the turn 2 priority, but Sean was so kind to he didn't move his Fulminators so that I couldn't redeploy away from him. But after the shooting, that left him with a 7-inch charge, and he failed even with the reroll, which again, I was relying on the double so I could deal with the Fulminators. Didn't get the double, but then he failed with that, which kept me in the game. But I did a favor back to him and failed my 6-inch charge to finish off the Fulminators in turn 3. I killed 2 in shooting. Didn't get into the my charge off to finish off that unit with my 20 Wardens, and so that was kind of the big early mid game steps. The one objective landed somewhat favorably for me, and I was able to sit on it most of the game. But the other 2 landed on the opposite end of the table, which I was not on. So in the end, the game was mostly me trying to take down the Fulminators. He rallied 2 or 3 back throughout the game, which is just hugely painful.
Sick. Yeah, it's awesome.
It's right. No, it is not awesome. Not when you're already down 740 points of techless before you start your turn. And then he was also rallying Judicators back, so he was like probably back up to 8 or 10 pretty quickly, and so shooting with them again. And I think he pivoted away from my Sentinels pretty early because of Life Swarm. But in the end, based on the objective placement where they came down the last 2, I basically had to make a last-ditch play on turn 5 to get one of those 2 because they're just worth so much, right? I had between round 1 and 2, I actually had a big lead in objectives because of battle tactics and that and the way it worked out and objectives. The first objective, but that was the last one. I scored 1 on turn 4. He killed the Warden unit, and then I just had to sneak on round 5, which I just managed to do with my Lord Regent and 2 Dawn Riders that had rallied back as well, 1 or 2 back throughout the game. So in the end, I got what I needed to at least force the tie. And then it was dependent on Sean killing my Lord Regent for the battle tactic and then charging into my Dawn Riders to take the objective. He got the first half, but didn't get the charge for the objective. And in the end, that cost him the game. I think we would have ended a tie otherwise, but that went favorably for me. Just that, lucky play. There were a few moments that I, felt like I could have clinched the game earlier again, but that stuff happens, right? I failed charge, Sean failed charges, but the turn 2 priority would have been big for me. And otherwise, I think that game was really that was my toughest game actually, for sure, of the weekend. facing Sean and in that situation and in the matchup, and Teclis dying right away. And I really had to. This is probably the best example of having to really like work my butt off to get battle tactics, because there's no objectives round 1. There's only one round 2, and I already like was on it and controlled it, I think. So I couldn't like do conquer. I couldn't, or all those things. Like round 1, I did broken ranks to blow up the battle line. I didn't actually know if I could kill the 10 liberators, but I managed to, so I got that. And then turn 2, I had to. This is just 11-inch deployment zones, and I did Savage Spearhead turn 2, and I had to auto run 6 one of my Lord Regent, and then I speed of Hished my Dawn Rider, so I could put both those units in his deployment zone, which was like hugely out of position. But I was just again fighting for every battle tactic, and not willing to give up a turn of it. And in the end, that's what it was. I think a 2-point difference in the game.
Yeah, you can't score Ferocious Advance very well because you don't have like little heroes to just that you don't care about shooting, right?
I also don't have units that can run because they're in Shining Company.
Yeah, so, fuck. That's like the easy one, right? For that one.
And I couldn't do Monstrous Takeover because Teclis was dead. So that was a really tough one, but managed to squeak it out in the end. So was very thankful for that, especially given how the game started. But yeah, it was a tough one. Didn't give up though.
Yeah, Tech was going down. Oh man. Cool. Yeah. So my game 3 was against Thomas Guan. So he had an amazing looking Daughters of Cain army. So it was Marathian the Bow Snakes with the turtle. Yeah. He used a bunch of like purple and blue and just painted very, very well. It just looked so cool. So he was running exactly. So Marathian Bow Snakes with the turtle, and it was a 1-drop and Star Strike. So I kind of deployed defensively, just everything out of 24 of the Bow Snakes. So he kind of put everything right up on the line as he should, because if he knows he was going first, which he did. And then, so he didn't really have much for the hero phase shot. I did put Duralia in the temple just as like a bait if he did want to use the CP to shoot all of his shots at them. If I lose her, it's not the biggest deal. And I knew my slan wasn't like 15 Bow Snakes just in the shooting phase wouldn't be able to kill him. So really, target priority. All my sallies were in the sky. So other than that, like maybe shoot the Stars here, but I had the priest behind the temple. So he ended up trying to shoot at the Bastiladon, which it's on a 1-up save. So just pretty much mortals. And then I had 6-up save. So it took 2 or 3 damage from the Bow Snakes. And then in my turn back, and then he kind of moved everything, but wasn't able to charge. So I just did my wounds to Marathi. He won turn 2 prio. And then that's where he kind of got into me, but just wasn't able to do enough damage and kill the units that I needed to. So I was able to bring down my sallies and then teleport 1 behind him. So I just pretty much targeted the Bow Snakes, took them down to like 3 or 4. And then kept doing my wounds to Marathi. He charged the turtle in. I unleashed hell on it. I think I got it down to like 2 or 3 wounds from shooting it, and then it taking wounds from the unleash hell. And then it whiffed and didn't do much damage. So then I was able to kill it in my turn. So it was a very bloody like Star Strike, which right away was kind of into that, and then just dropping all of the salamanders down. So by turn 3, I think it was just Marathi, big Marathi, little Marathi, the snake or the Medusa with like 1 or 2 wounds, and then like a couple Bow Snakes that he was rallying. Yeah. So then, by the end of that, but really, I don't know much else like other than that. Like he couldn't give me first, so he made the right play doing that, and then kind of just had to charge in. So it was one of those situations where I was just able to screen and then just shoot with the sallies as effectively as they do. But super awesome opponent, was really skilled and quick. I don't know if he played 40K before or anything as well, but very quick with his dice, very like just good. You could tell he's
practiced and prepared.
Yeah, which I love. It's so nice and just really nice, and it was So it was a great game. So that was my game 3. So I got my strats. I finished on full points as well. So yeah, I was sitting actually at 105 at max
Yeah.
from the first 3 games.
You were 3-0 at max points. Carl was 3-0, not at max points, but that's on.
Lost 6 points. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a bad spot to be, obviously, because you're then like, yeah, it doesn't really. There's a potential that you're playing, you know, well, it's other people who haven't maxed, right? So
Yeah.
some advantage to that. But it's still all good opponents. But in the end, it's wins is the most important, right? End of day 2, or sorry, end of day 1, we knew there were going to be, based on the number of players, there were going to be 2 undefeated players at the event. Like through, at the end, which for me again was why I was so focused on battle tactics and whatnot, because I knew I still, with dropping 1 game, I still had a chance at a podium, but I need to be flawless on battle tactics and strategy. So we're all, again, this is the big thing I always say is our goal is like being in the hunt on day 2. Things don't go your way sometimes. You get bad matchups, bad missions, but it's really like setting yourself up to be in the position to be fighting for podiums. Especially day 2, a lot can just come down to matchups and missions, and you can't control those, so that happens. But we were all in the hunt still, so that was big.
Yeah, big time. And in my situation, I knew who I was. Well, had a good idea who I was playing. I don't know actually if the pairings are how they actually did go, but usually where we, like, when in our tournaments, it's if you're 1-2, like that's who's playing table 1.
Yeah, based on points and tiebreakers. Yeah.
Yeah, so mine was Mike Vaginos, who we'll chat about, which is funny, but we were having beers and like hanging out and stuff like that before. So it was it's always fun when, like, same with Carl at the Red Harvest. Carl and I were playing Sunday morning game 4. So we knew all Saturday night that we were playing each other. So
a little extra banter
with your opponent.
Yeah, making them sleep on the floor, or things like that.
Capital City bloodbath of 3 years ago, where
You and
Lionel was playing one of our buddies, Lionel, was playing mind games all night, like
trying to mess with you.
Yeah, trying to mess with me. Yeah,
it's funny shit.
It's a interesting sub game of the tournaments, 2-day tournament scene. But yeah, we were doing very well after day 1, and I guess I'll talk about my day 2. Game 4 was First Blood, and I was matched up against a familiar face in Duncan Bills with his Seraphon Kotal's Claw list.
Dean Bills.
Dean, sorry, not Duncan. Because I'm looking at your face and saying Duncan.
His brother.
Or his brother, yes. So yes, I was matched up against Dean, and the previous night as well, we were the only 2 people with the same points, so I sort of kind of knew that we were going to play each other. Now, we didn't know what mission it was going to be, so I kind of formulated 2 game plans based on the mission. One was a short deployment where we're 18 or 22 apart. In that case, because he has the ability to 3d6 charge and the knights move, decently well, I would have to take first and try to alpha him as hard as possible. Because he was a 12 drop list and I was 9. If it was a farther deployment, I was going to give him first, deploy outside his ranges, and basically play for the double. And I knew that even though he reduced my damage by 1, my Destroyer Maw Crusher with +3 damage with the War Chanter buff, 6 damage going to 5 is not that much of a difference.
Yeah.
And so, like, it would still be able to kill one of his big pieces,
anything,
maybe 2 pieces. And so yeah, I because it was First Blood, I gave him first. He was able to drop the Chameleon Skinks down onto an objective and basically pass turn to me. So he scored 1 point on his first turn. Didn't score his battle tactic. And so I was in a very, very good spot. And so I played very aggressively, got my Destroyer Maw Crusher into his Night Screens as well as the 6 pigs. The terrain kind of was to my detriment. There was kind of a single lane, and because of how big the pie plate is of the Maw Crusher plus the 6 pigs,
Yeah.
I wasn't able to fully leverage them, but I was able to eliminate basically all his screens, and what was left in the back was just the Carnosaur, the Troglodon, and Bastillodon. And so he would have to fight out of that corner in order to even score points against me. And so I was feeling very good going into the roll off. If he had won it, he would kill the Maw Crusher, possibly put a dent in the pigs, but still wouldn't be on the objectives. And then I have the potential to double him 2 to 3. I did end up winning it and going for double, and so I was rubbing my hands. I was like, my plan is coming together.
Yeah.
Let's shove this this destroyer Maw Crusher right into his Carnosaur, tagging the Troglodon as well, and eliminating the Carnosaur. Once the Carnosaur is gone, he basically has a Slan, a Troglodon, and a Bastillodon plus 5 knights,
Yeah.
which is not very much versus my whole entire army. And so I buffed up my guy and I was like, let's go. So I had 8 attacks, 2s and 2s, and this is where, dice can sort of let you down. I was only able to wound with 1 of the 8 dice on 2s and 2s. So it was very, very unfortunate that happened. And his Carnosaur ended up living on 2 wounds.
Yeah, that's wild.
Yeah, which was insane. He actually didn't even realize what I was doing. I said, "Oh, I'm activating Destroyer." Rolled my dice, and he's like, "How many saves?" I'm like, "1." He's like, "Okay." Oh, I failed a save. What is it? 1 damage? I'm like, "No, it's 5 damage." And he's like, "Wait, what?"
Like, that was
And
40 damage. That could been.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if I was able to, kill the Carnosaur there, I think it would have been game over. And he said himself as well, if the Carnosaur was dead, yeah, that he would have conceded. He would have shook my hand at that point, gave me max score, and walked away from the table because he couldn't do anything. But credit to Dean, like you were saying, Jordan, he puts himself in good positions. The Carnosaur and the Slan, start accruing advantages from turn to turn. And kind of the big turning point was he made a charge with his Troglodon. And Dean was very smart, did not shoot his Bastillodon into the one remaining pig that was pinning both the Bastillodon and the Troglodon, and killed that pig in combat. Now, it's very dicey. The Bastillodon's not really the greatest melee combat threat, and to do 5 wounds to to something is difficult at D3 damage. He was able to do it, and because of the Troglodon charging, it was able to pile in onto the objective. And so he was able to score 1-2 more on that point, and then he doubled me, and then he scored 1-2 more again. So for 2 turns. If he had shot the Bastillodon into the pig, he wouldn't have been able to
Been on the objective.
charge and get onto objectives. That's a 4-point swing. Actually, more than a 4-point swing, because I would have been 1-2 more and 1-2 more as well. So it would have been
Wow.
an 8-point swing. Yeah, he basically was very measured in how he played.
Yeah, that's super good. It's a very good objective play. Like,
Yeah.
Yeah, just the presence of mind to just know, where it was. I actually misplayed it. I had piled in my pig closer to objective, thinking that I was going to retreat onto the objective on my turn. And so I opened that lane for him to do that. And so even with my Destroyer Maw Crusher not doing what it was meant to do, I was still in the game, and that was actually the critical error that cost me the game, was piling in my Gore Grunter closer to the objective. There's no reason for me to do that because I already held the point, and one Gore Grunter is not going to hold the point against a Bastillodon and a Troglodon.
That's such like a small thing, but like those are the things that you can control. So that's what we always talk about. Like
Right.
we talk about after, like things you can do better. Like you're not going to ever be able to roll 8 dice, 2s and 2s, and get all.
Just have one go through.
Things like that are going to happen. So
Yeah.
it's like thinking about what you can
play.
do.
Exactly.
Yeah, and it was actually interesting because I piled in my Gore Grunter away from the point, and at the end of the combat phase, because of Bloodtooth, I can pile again, and I piled him back. So I had the instinct to do it already, and then I was
Yes.
like, oh well, I can win the roll off and I can retreat him onto the objective, so I'll pile closer to the objective, not thinking it was going to be the opening
Yeah.
for Dean to win. And so yeah, Dean was the Season of War killer. He beat both Jordan and I, yeah, in this tournament, and put himself in a very, very good position.
I should see if he'll trade me Carnosaurs, because maybe his Carnosaur just is like way cooler.
And yeah, so from a matchup standpoint, Seraphon's horrible again for Iron Jaws, but Iron Jaws has a little bit more play against Coalesced, because you can peel the screens and you can get into the softer targets in the back, which was what I attempted to do. With Starborn, you're unable to remove the screens because they could summon more skinks in front, and you never get to the softer targets in the back. Just the Slann. The Slann is the only thing that really, really just makes it a bad matchup. He Comet's Call onto my War Chanter, Comet's Call onto my Weird Dom Shaman, and so my buff pieces are getting
Chipped down.
constantly aggressed. Yeah, and it doesn't require line of sight, so you hide him behind terrain or what have you, or put him on the other board edge. You can still unbind your teleport spell, so it's
pretty awesome.
Yeah. Yeah. So,
Nice.
yeah, Destroyer.
Yeah.
He's being shelved for the next event. So
well, for me, similarly, round 3 kind of had their idea the night before, and I did end up playing Starlet with her Skaven, and yeah, First Blood, again, long mission. I ended up taking first just for positioning wise and objectives, and just getting my castle in good position based on that matchup and actually where the gnaw holes were. If I had have given first, Starlight would have been able to, teleport the Storm Fiends through and shoot at me, shoot whatever. It was only my screens, so I deployed properly from them, but she was still killing 10 wardens, whatever, with the short range shooting. What this allowed me to do, taking first, was actually pivot wholly towards one of the, because she cornered me with 2 of the gnaw holes in the objectives, into the corner of the deployment zone. So I went wholly kind of towards one and away from the other, which meant I was out of the threat of one and blocked the deep strike or the teleport to the other. So just felt super comfortable with that. And didn't do much turn 1, a little chip damage, but really it was, I unbound. I had Lambent Light unbound, actually, which is why I didn't do much damage. And then I unbound more warp power on Starlight's first turn, and she still teleported through the Storm Fiends, just to set them up in position, I guess, and start doing a little shooting, which didn't amount, as I killed 3 Sentinels, I think, with my stacking saves and -1 to hit.
So she teleport the Arch Warlock, or
no, just the Storm Fiends.
Oh, so the following turn they weren't near the Arch
exactly,
Warlock?
Yeah. So that was tough. But I knew they could shoot me, move up and shoot if she won priority. But again, not too worried about it with the defensive capabilities I have in Shining Company. But I won priority. It let me kill, 3 Storm Fiends or 2 Storm Fiends or something, and battle shock off another 2 with the minus bravery spell and whatnot. So
yeah, you've played Skaven a bunch too. We've played it a bunch, and props to her, man. She's doing well with that.
She did great at the event. Yeah.
Crazy, because Skaven is a very much you need a lot of things to go right, and a lot of random chance things. Having an auto unbind, trying to stay outside of 30 attack list, there's so many things.
Yeah, so in the end, again, just knowing the list, knowing Skaven, I felt prepared going into it, and kind of was comfortable with my game plan, and there wasn't too many surprises. So nothing, otherwise, I was able to, from that point on, kill a unit a turn and secure objectives and kill the clan rats, which, early game were dancing around the objectives, but as soon as you get into them, they fall apart.
Yeah.
And the big thing was she had Thankful with like the 4 projectors. So
as you do, yeah,
super
good
at shooting, 8-inch range. But the downside of 8-inch range is you are in redeploy range. So there was like 1 or 2 turns. Again, I was super precise with my measurements and knowing where she can teleport and how far I need to be away. So I wasn't giving her any options for shooting. And then she teleported Thankful and then didn't get the shoot and then moved him up the next turn, which she only had like, in 8-inch range of like 10 of my like 30 sentinels, but I redeployed them 2 inches to be completely out of the range. So that just kills Thankful, right? That's so crippling.
Yeah, you're the worst, Jordan. Let her shoot the flamethrower. That would have been so frustrating. But that's redeploy in 3. That's like, it's so good.
Yeah. But yeah, so won that game. So I was still sitting on 3-1 at that point.
Yep, cool. Yeah, and then so my game, like we talked about, we knew. So it was me and Mike Vaginos in his Thunder Lizard list. So he was running all the Staggies, the engine, 2 Sally, 1 Sally. So I knew I know a lot about the list, what it does, how it works, everything. It's a 1 drop, so I'm a 2 drop. So right away I'm like, he's going to give me first, and then if he gets the double, it's going to be trouble. So sure enough, we deploy everything, and it's going to be just a pyramid match of us shooting each other with our pyramids to do mortals with a combination of Comet as well. So we both he had just the Slan and the Skink Priest, both in his priest in his temple. Mine, I put just the Slan, and I put a lot of the other things outside of 3 of my temple because I knew he was going to blow up my temple. Not completely thinking, but he actually ended up just blowing up the piece of terrain, which was like outside of 3 of my temple, which ended up hitting like some of my other units. Anyway, so yeah, he gave me first. Like we both knew it was going to happen. And then I kind of just moved up, got the middle point, put 10 skinks on the other point to get 1-2 more, and then just screened out my heroes. And then I didn't bring down any salamanders, so I left all my salamanders in the sky. Which, yeah, again, another one like because a lot of those, I just know the Staggies, 3 shots, 3 threes, -1, 3 damage. You can roll that well, and it can do lots of damage, but pretty much have lookouts are on all my heroes. So 4s, 3s, it's I don't know. I've missed with it so often that I'm pretty confident. So anyways, he didn't kill anything in his turn, but then he won the double, which was like, okay, this potentially not good if he can get, he had Beastmaster on his engine too. So he made it actually run and charge, auto 6'd it, fully charged it in.
Yeah.
So the thing that did save me was when he did auto or run and charge or move and charge the other Stegadon, or it was the engine. He got within 9 of my Slan. So then I rolled a redeploy with my Slan and I rolled a 5. So I was able to redeploy my Slan behind 2 of my other heroes and then still have the guard within 3. So all of his shots, I had my 2-up pass-offs for my guard. So he didn't end up killing my Slan like in the shooting in his top of 2. He killed like everything else and took his points and got everything. He did make a big charge with his other 1 Stegadon though, which was able to charge into Ashliff Bear or something on the side, but then he was able to, or the Basilodon, then he was able to pile in around it and get into my Slan, which he then proceeded to do. How much did he do? I can't remember, but he killed my Slan. Essentially, again, I rolled the 4-up with the Gobby's Pendant again. So in this situation, it was like, I did a nice redeploy. I passed off a bunch of my wounds. I still I could have easily survived, but I can't remember exactly, but he killed him to the wound. And then I rolled the 4-up, and again, we were laughing about it, like rolled it. And then he came back with full life. So he survived. And then I dropped down, and then bottom of 2, dropped down all my salamanders.
And then killed his things.
Yeah, but still, because of the -1 damage against salamanders, like going into this, I knew that I need to roll mortals, in which I didn't actually roll many mortals, but I was getting a lot of my D3s were 3s. So right away, D3 damage -1 is it's so good against D3 damage, like -1 damage. So any 2s or 1s, any 3s or 2s. So it's like Yeah, so I was just barely able to kill a couple of them. It was like by the turn 3, it was like such a measurement of points, and like it was the best game, one of the best games I've ever played, and one of like, by far my best game of the tournament.
Yeah, I was beside you guys again for this game, and I remember sitting and watching by. You guys were tied going into round 5.
Yeah, it was tied, and it was one of the most intense games. Like every measurement we were doing, and we're buddies, so we're like it's okay. Like you take a minute like to make sure we didn't want it to be like a dumb mistake that made it lose either way. So like we made sure like it was very thought out, and it was like just insane. So by the end of turn 5, I was able to lock up his Bastiladon with my Bastiladon and shoot off the Staggy with Bring It Down, which I got the battle tactic, and then I had 10 skinks just over on the other point, which he wasn't able to get away and get the point, so I was able to mathematically win. But it was like
super tight.
Oh, just crazy tight. And getting doubled, you know what I mean? Having a 1-drop like that and then giving away and getting the double is a dream. Like that's what the list is made to do, right?
Yeah.
And that much output with the slam, like he could have definitely like if I didn't roll that 4 up too, like it would have been game as well.
Yeah.
So it's like I learned a lot of like just about that, like bringing the sallies down just to have a bit more target threat and just not risking that. But I didn't think that it was going to be able to kill the slam with the source guard and the +1 save, and just being able to, and having the 6-up ward. You can't ever count on those things, and it's like they're just nice kind of to have. But end of the day, it was like I said, knew exactly what the list did. I was super surprised because I don't think he plays Seraphon too much, but he knew remembered all the rules. Everything was really like crisp, so it was crazy. It was a really good game.
And so that was game 4. Again, that's kind of what you expect. Game 4, game 5 on top tables, max points, tough close games, but you got the W, which was big.
And honestly, like winning games and winning tournaments, is a lot of skill, but it does take luck as well.
Yeah.
You need dice to fall your way at critical moments, and for you that weekend was basically the 4-ups was saved you on both accounts.
Yeah, which huge there, because all the other times like my dice absolutely failed me. Like that game 1, rolled 2 of my heroes, I rolled a 1 and they both died. You know what I mean? Like things like that also happen.
Yeah. But those things have an impact one way or another.
Yeah, they weren't back-breaking.
I was going to say too, matchups. Like, you can have a good list and play a lot and be very good with what you're doing, but also matchups are a massive portion of it.
Especially day 2.
Yes, day 2, game 4 and 5. Like it can, like we'll talk about in my game 5, I guess. But it's very much about it.
Yeah, Iron Jaws has such a difficult time with Seraphon that you need to find a path through your opponents and avoid Seraphon. Now, there are some Seraphon lists that you have some play against, but the Starborn lists which are heavily featured near the top are difficult for my specific army to play. So
if you can screen, Temple is huge.
Yeah.
Nice. All right. So Ridge was top tables, sitting on 4-0. Me and Carl both 3-1 in the hunt.
Yeah.
So going into round 5.
Yeah. So round 5, you play such difficult games when you're on a winning streak, that when you lose a game, sometimes it becomes an easier road. And now I don't want to take anything away from my opponent. I don't think he was too experienced in what Iron Jaws at the higher end of competition is able to do. My opponent was playing Ogre Maw Tribes with a Frost Lord on Stonehorn, a Frost Lord on Thundertusk, and a lot of Mournfang. I think there was a 4. Excuse me. There's a 4, a 4, and a 2 pack. So quite a few Mournfang. And he was a very, very low drop. and we were playing what we were playing Power Struggle.
Power Struggle.
Power Struggle.
Yep.
Yeah, we were playing Power Struggle, so it's quite a short deployment edge, or like short ways to get to your opponent, and my opponent just wasn't experienced, gave me first, and I basically shoved both my Maw Crusher and my 6 pigs into his army and was able to take away everything but the Frost Lord on Stonehorn and 2 pigs.
Iron
Or
Jaws.
two Mournfang, and it was devastating. Like I don't think he's ever seen that kind of output, because I put my destroyer Maw Crusher into 2 units, and then I split the attacks. And then I had to tell him, like, each of those, the 3 saves you failed right there are 6 damage apiece. He's like, that's my Frost Lord dead. And I'm
Yeah.
like,
You bully, Carl. You bully.
yes. And then the Maw Crusher itself still does 4 damage. So it's a lot
shocking
of
how much I
output.
output. Yeah.
Yeah, and he was 24 inches away, and I was telling him, my friend, you cannot get away from me. Like, on this deployment zone, it's 36 inches. The only way you can get away from me is if you screen your models
With the Mournfang.
with other models, but those are also your hammer pieces. Though you want to keep those things alive as well.
Yeah, that's a tough matchup.
Yeah, it doesn't
Yeah,
have true screens, right? Anything you can afford to
exactly.
lose.
And basically, by turn 2, I was able to sandwich the remaining Stonehorn with 2 Maw Crushers, and we called game there. It was a very, very quick game. I think we were done in 20 minutes or so.
You were done your game, like, when we were starting our turn 1.
Yeah.
Because you came over to
I was
RJ.
walking around, to watch the things. In hindsight, I him and I discussed kind of the matchup. It's an incredibly bad matchup, like we were saying. It's all matchups in day 2. Especially he did very, very well getting to 3-1 with an Ogre Maw Tribes list that featured Mournfang heavily, and he was playing Thunderbellies, and I didn't know anything that army did. I was like, I'm familiar with Boulderhead and all those ones. He was like, I was surprised with how fast your army moved. If we were to play it differently, I would have just put my Mournfang in a box, and then both Frost Lords within 3 of the Mournfang box that he made.
Yeah.
Because the Maw Crushers only have 1-inch reach, when I impact the Mournfang unit, I kill whatever Mournfang screen he has, and the Frost Lords are able to come into within 3 and smack me. And Frost Lords do a ton of damage as well. And then on his second turn, he has 2 turns of output with 2 Frost Lords going into a Maw Crusher. That thing will die. And then he's free with 2 big monsters versus my Maw Crusher.
That's
and
good
so
that you talked it out and like he has, have an
yeah,
idea.
Learn from
he
it.
wanted to learn. And the Mournfang are big fat bases, so I can't get, even if I'm base to
Yeah.
base in whatever orientation, I'm unable to get to his Frost Lords. And his Frost Lords have 2-inch reach and pile in attack, double turn, pile in attack. Like,
If you
he would
do some work back.
yeah, impact hits, that sort of thing. Yeah, he could have definitely
Battle
took me.
Trencher.
Yeah. So I mean, at the end of 2, I was missing 6 pigs, and I was missing a Maw Crusher. Even though it was a crushing victory for me, all I had left was 2 units of 3 pigs, my War Chanters, and my other Maw Crusher left. Yeah, obviously I tabled him, but if he didn't lose the other Frost Lord on the top of 1, he could have done some significant damage and clawed it. And they count for 10 models, and I don't have that many models to parse around. Yeah, so yeah, I was done in 20 minutes, and so I walked around and I watched everybody else's game. The nail biters that well, not really nail biters, but I'll let the other 2 guys talk about their.
So I played round 5. I played Mike, who just played in round 4, and we were playing on table 3 again. The top 2 tables were all 4 undefeated players, but I was then coming in at highest ranked with 1 loss based on battle tactics and whatnot, which is after game 2 where I hoped to be, and the matchup against Mike is, again, Thunder Lizards reducing damage by 1 doesn't matter. Having good saves doesn't matter because I do mortals. So a somewhat favorable matchup for me. We're both 1-drops, and I won the roll. So I got to drop first, give him first, which meant it helps me mitigate damage when you have compared to the double. Especially I have Life Swarm, so letting him do some damage first, and then I Life Swarm a bunch of it back. It doesn't really hurt me too much. And again, then the turn, the priority can either be even or hugely in my favor, rather than hugely to my detriment. So that's kind of where we were at. We hit. He won turn 2 priority, and then power struggle. Threw a bunch of stuff in, but it just wasn't quite enough with the resiliency. I miss shielded one of my units of wardens, and between Aether Courts and Sire being able to double Aether Courts and then all out defense, I'm like, I can be +2 to 2 units, and he was only rend 1, so I'm always on 3+.
All of it. That's the Thunder Lizard problem, is everything is 1 rend. So
he does have he does have 3 sallies, but he put them in his temple against me, and I grabbed we grabbed the bases, and I'm like, I put my units the furthest he could deploy the sallies from the temple, if he won priority, and then their shooting range, I was a millimeter outside that. And, again, like we talked about it. Mike was the perfect opponent, the kind of person you always want to play. Great game, had a lot of fun, super kind guy. You're very knowledgeable, very smart player, which is key, because I feel like a lot of issues can come.
You understand intent right away, and you can tell each other what exactly a millimeter outside of that, and it's so easy. And there can
be a lot of bad feels coming from when you're unprepared for something. But if you and your opponent both know what each other does, it's easy to just be like, you're doing that, cool, I know you can do it, blah blah blah. It's just smooth sailing, and so it was an awesome game to play. Had an absolute blast, and so
you just do mortals.
Your list is men.
One
damage in mortals. That's so against Thunder Lizards. That's what you want. Other than Techless is your only piece that does more than 1 damage. So
I was slowly chipping down a couple monsters. I killed one on his turn, but I didn't kill one round 1. But again, I was just getting bonus points, and it was pretty. I'm sure the store was super close, bottom of 2, but then I won priority into 3. Let me kill, another 2 monsters, and at that it was just too overwhelming, too much. Just similar to some one of the other games where it's a really favorable matchup for me, and it can be scary if I don't get if I give away first and don't get the double at some point, but I did, so it was fine.
Yeah. Well, one thing I noticed kind of, as kind of an overall, when 2 good players are playing each other, or 2 very knowledgeable players, kind of on the higher end of the spectrum, before you move any models or anything like that, you measure. It's like, okay, if I have a move of 6 and this is 13 inches, my charge will be 7.
Yeah.
Before you move any models, you kind of establish that, and so you
just takes any
exactly
bickering out, and
how many models on objectives. I'll have 6 on this if I make this a 6
exactly.
We always play like that, and most people do.
But
more experienced players for sure.
More experienced players do that. So just start to get into the habit of before you move things, just measure it out, even if it's not in the same phase or turn, just so that it cuts down on the back end measuring and the back end argument of things. Like you were saying, when you pull put the sallies out, I'm a millimeter away. Things could get nudged, or you're reaching over, your sleeve gets caught in a model, it nudges a millimeter forward, and then on the subsequent turn, you didn't discuss intent. He's able to bring his sallies out, and he shoots that unit, which for all intents purposes shouldn't have happened, because it just got nudged or something. So when you kind of play on the higher end level, and if you want to like kind of level up your game and play a cleaner, tighter game and make it enjoyable for yourself and your opponent, just start to kind of build those habits
Yeah.
of just pre-measuring and talking about intent.
And
Um,
and it's also like, especially when both players are playing and you know each other's lists too, and you understand that, which is a hard thing to do because there's so many armies, right?
Yeah.
But having that understanding, because then you both know what's going on and nobody's like trying to trick one another, which is just the worst way to try and play Warhammer. You're
Yes.
trying to trick someone or surprise someone. That's just the worst way to play.
Yeah.
Nobody
Like,
enjoys that.
yeah.
So
Nobody likes pocket sand.
Yeah.
Like you just.
So yeah, no, totally great points. But
And
this
here
is-
we go.
yeah, so I got the win there in the end.
Yeah.
Didn't mention that, but got the win. So got the 4-1. Got all my battle tactics, grand strategies. So I didn't think at the time there was anyone else, unless actually Ridge's game. I felt unless the loser of Ridge's game maxed out on points, I was at that point coming in third. So, or I guess either of the top two. No, because both players on the second table had dropped points.
It was only Ridge.
Oh right, because Ridge was the only one max.
Yeah, it was only Ridge who could have potentially ousted you from third. Yeah.
So
if I lost,
yes, if you lost and scored max points, I could have been bumped. But I was pretty happy, and obviously rooting for Ridge to win regardless, anyways.
Right. Yeah. Yep.
And I had in mine, I was a favorable match, like for sure. So going into it, Caleb, Walters, who we know is a very big player of note, has won multiple giant tournaments, and
the reigning champion from the last time.
Just gonna say, I know you and him had a little chit chat before our game, and I needed to get some revenge for you because he beat you last year at Du Bois, or 2 years ago.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, he was playing Lord of Change, Kairos in Host Arcanum with a couple other heroes, the Ogre Thaumaturge, the Changecaster, 3x10 Kyrix, and man, when I was 2-drop, obviously. So my plan is his everything that he does is within 18 inches. Like that's what the list does. It
mortal wounds. Yeah. Destroys
you within 18 inches. And then I know he has Portal. I know he's going to turn one of my characters into a spawn. And I've played Zinch a few times. So I think he knew too. I'm obviously was going to give him first. But he started casting like crazy, man. That Changecaster, every time it casts on a 9+, so he's +1. And then he also manipulated cogs because I finally unbound one, or he failed one. Then he manipulated cogs 9+ again, and 9+ again. It was just like the amount of spells that were coming out just into the sky and everything else. So yeah, he summoned 10 blues as well. But it came down to what we knew. We both, and the best thing is like we just talked about, both of us knew exactly what was going to happen. He knew, I give him first. If I double back, there's a very good chance that that's just going to be game, because those salamanders, when I drop them down in my 1, I'm able to drop them outside of 18 of his chicken or his Lord of Change, so that I know in my turn, if I win, I can get all of them within range to shoot those chickens.
Oh, there's Ridge.
But if he wins, I'm going to be outside of 18 for him to mortal me off. What's that?
Oh, you're good. You're good now.
You're okay now.
Low lag, but you're good.
Oh, is that lagged? Yeah. So I just did exactly that. So his turn, he turned my one guy into a spawn. I was able to kill it with the Bastiladon, and because there was no really other place to put it. And then just dropped down all the salamanders, shot off all the acolytes, essentially screens, and the blues, charged them into his blues, and then I won turn 2 prio. So it's one of those moments that in turn 2 prio is just like, okay, well, and then
based on the matchup.
And the Bastiladon as well is doing 3 damage to them because of
Doralia.
So Doralia is 4 damage each. So he actually used a couple Destiny dice on Doralia's shots just to mitigate it.
Yep.
He was using Destiny dice to try to keep the Kairos alive and the other Lord of Change alive, which he did do. If he would have won Prow turn 2, he would have had both of them alive still. So it definitely would have been a game.
Yeah.
So it was here's Caleb.
Yeah. And he did as of note. While I was doing my walk around. He did roll a lot of 1s and 2s. So he wasn't able to guarantee that
with Destiny dice.
Correct.
Yeah. He had only, I think he had 1 6, 1 5
There's
Yeah,
3 1s and 2 2s, yeah, that I saw as well. So
yeah. So the Destiny dice pool wasn't amazing for saves, which would have been nice as well.
yeah,
But yeah, so then turn 2, I killed the Kairos Lord of Change and the Change Caster
yeah,
with the 6 salamanders, which are perfectly pointed at 120 points. Should never have to go up in any amount. No, they're just insane the amount of output they have. So
Mhm.
it was just absolutely wild. But
Nice.
yeah,
And
so
sure, it's Caleb. I do love his list. I actually talked about his list. Actually, we'll get into that in a moment. We'll talk about the list predictions we had in a bit.
yeah,
But I guess so. Final takeaways. Ridge, you went 5-0, scored max points, dropped no battle tactics, no grand strategies, no games. So best general.
yeah,
Got the big tournament first place. So big congrats, Ridge. Obviously, we were all super stoked.
yeah.
Carl and I both ended up on 4-1, so we were like, that's me always
Very,
kind
very
of
respectable. Yeah.
that's always my goal is I'm shooting for 4-1, and if you're shooting for 4-1, you have a chance of 5-0, right? It's just a little thing sometimes. So we were both
got
seeing
taken
that,
down by Dean though.
yeah, and I did end up sneaking into that final podium spot at third. Again, not having dropped battle tactics or grand strategies either. So Ridge and I shared a podium in the exact same positions that we shared the podium at Red Harvest.
Yeah, somehow.
Yeah, I said next time we'll have to do it, but in the reverse order. So we'll see this weekend up in London.
Yeah. I'll be in a wheelchair. I just had my hip surgery, so I was not going to be playing in this tournament next weekend, and I told everyone that. But I've been feeling great somehow. It's been 3 days, so I'm in a position where I think I might be able to just sit down and play some games. So we'll see.
This commitment.
Yeah, I love the chats too. This is getting drunk and not because I wanted to, like I know I said in the pre-thing, I just want to have some beers and hang out with people and a couple dice rolls go your way and put yourself in a position. It was just like obviously everyone wants to play, be competitive and do that. But yeah, with that in these types of lists that are I don't know. Everyone there's so many strong lists that are like that. But yeah.
Well, any other final takeaways about just the event or how things went?
As much as the competitive aspect and playing the games is kind of the main focus of this channel, I just want to give a great thank you to the people who we hung out with after day 1 and day 2. Joe Pagano and the rest of the tough crowd people, Anthony. We had so much fun hanging out with them. It was a pleasure. That's where Barl came from.
Which is your new Twitter handle.
Yeah, my new Twitter handle, and Emma, talking to her, and the back and forth about
calling her straight-oriented and uncompetitive.
Yeah, her less uncompetitive, and if I told her if she went 3-2, I would make a Twitter account, and if she was 4-1, which she was, that I would talk about her list on her channel and say sorry to her for calling it uncompetitive. So here we are. And so those kind of like little moments. If you're looking at going to a tournament or you haven't gone to a tournament, grab another friend. Like, it's so much more fun when you have a team around you. Like we were saying, most of the things that were memorable for us is like Jordan's to my right or Ridge is to my left, and I look over. I laughed so hard when not at your misfortune, Jordan, but when you left it techless and you just gave me the oh shit look. Like, those like small moments, it really do make AOS what it is. So grab a friend, go to a tournament. You don't have to be super duper competitive, but that's kind of where the fun is
and the community in general. Just to piggyback on that, I would also say don't be afraid if you don't have any other friends in the hobby or to go by yourself, because I started going to my first few events by myself, well. And that's how me and Carl met each other.
So and just Rich later on,
a bunch of events, and then we've found the degenerate Seraphon player Ridge at events and adopted him.
Actually, everybody, like none of us knew each other prior to playing OS. Zach, you obviously knew your brother.
I met Zach. I met Zach and then came to tournaments with him, and that's how I met you guys. But yeah, it's just reaching out to people, even on like Twitter. If you're gonna go to a tournament, just like reach. It's so easy just to hey man, like we're coming to this tournament, like maybe let's have a beer or something.
Yeah, and another big note, Emma mentioned it in the chat. I wanted to mention just the highlight of like the community that's around AOS, like talking about like finding friends or breeding friends or making friends. Like we were there. There was a huge raffle after the event shared between the 40K and the AOS guys, and it's like the amount of fun the AOS crowd was having, just making fun out of bullshit. Like what people were choosing for the raffles, or whether it was an AOS player or a 40K player got their name called or whatever, or their ticket called. Just the amount of fun the AOS crowd was having compared to the 48K crowd was a stark contrast, I will say.
We had a few converts. Some people picked up some AOS models off of that raffle.
But it just goes to show, not don't want to talk down about anyone by any means, but just like how lively and fun the AOS community typically is.
Especially the tough crowds.
Yeah. So that was great. But yeah, that's it. So I guess, Harold, do you want to jump in and take us through your 3 list predictions? Just quick.
So the person who did the best out of my 3 lists was Emma Mangles with her non-competitive Dread Saurian build. The other 2 lists did well in the weekend. Sam Gould went 3-2, and then the Stormcast list went 2-3. But there was kind of the concept of the Stormcast list and how it's going to be prevalent with your game against Sean and another gentleman who went 4-1 and who was on 4th. Kind of shows the power of the book. It might be the player was not prepared or wasn't as practiced with the list. Matchups.
Me and Sean, he could have, that game could have gone another way. It was pretty close. So, So overall, I just have to talk about Emma's list as much as I can during this list show. So there we go. I think I fulfilled that. Yeah. Great success, 4-1 with the Dread Saurian. For myself, my predictions, I predicted Caleb as like potentially being on the podium. So as my pick, he was on the top table round 5. So I don't think, I think I was pretty close with that prediction. He's obviously in the mix. As I expected there, and so great list, played it super well. I love it. I told him I want to work on putting that list together so I can play it on the channel. Just super interesting, a lot of tech to it. That'd be fun to play. I like techie lists, so and then what are my other ones? I had Rocco was my flavor pick with his Living Cities. He had 4 Dracoths, and he went 3-2, so did well. Had a great tournament. I was happy to see him, having fun with Living Cities. And then the other list I chose as my sleeper pick, if we can call it that, was Bill with his Night Haunt, who again I ended up playing round 1. But Bill being Bill,
lost,
besides that, one game, which was, the matchup and mission were heavily in my favor, he won out from there. Went 4-1, so great success, great job. Huge congrats to Bill. I just, again, even playing him, just the quality of player really, says a lot. He played another Luminath later in the tournament, and won that matchup. So, scary with any army. What about you, Ridge?
Yeah, so the list. So who did I pick? I had Joe, Anth, and Noah. So the biggest thing is that Anth defended the interdimensional belt against Noah there on Friday, which was hilarious. But then they ended up having to play each other all throughout it as well. So I think Anthony defended it because he had to play Joe, and then defended it like 3 times. So all pretty much middle of the pack. Big shout out to Noah, actually. Noah just went 5-0 with his Iron Jaws at the Austin GT this weekend. So he was playing Cruel Boys at the one that we were just at, at the Boys. But he, just went 5-0. We just found out. So that was dope. But yeah, I don't know. Are we, anything else with the list that we pick, or just
mention them? Kind of,
just credit. Just revisit.
Yeah. More credit was just having beers and hanging out with everyone.
Yeah.
As
Ridge,
everyone.
this should have been in our final takeaways. Ridge thoroughly celebrated his victory.
My God.
I apologize to multiple people, and also love you all.
Yeah, me and Carl had to take care of this drunken fool.
Dragon. Yeah.
I called a few people.
Well deserved. No, but great weekend overall. Yep. I think that's pretty much, so wrapping it up. I don't know if there were any other questions we saw in the chat. We've been chiming in.
There's
a little
bit. There's just a few questions. Jokes aside, I'm 28 years old. I'm not 12. And I understand that I always go with these guys. They're like my parents when they take me to
only 3 years older than you.
Yeah, Rich is basically dad. Like
get in the back.
No, Rich. I'm dad, if anything. Rich is the drunken uncle.
Yeah. Rich did not get his display board back.
Yeah, Rich left his display board there, so shout out to Rich.
Leave a part of himself.
I have an update. I have got a hold. It is currently in Syracuse. So anyone in the upstate New York area that can grab my display board, currently trying to figure out
we'll have
how
to
I made
try and cross the border at some point. Once the border opens for small trips, which it was not at the time, and we had to pay $150 US to come back to Canada.
Yeah. So Josh has a couple questions kind of in terms of feedback. I'll kind of answer some of them, and you guys can kind of chime in as well. The first question was, how satisfied were you with the way soft scores like sportsmanship and paint scores were handled, and how would we improve them? Now, this is all subjective. Like as a TO, you're free to run the tournament however you like. Kind of from my opinion, my standpoint, and kind of how other tournaments are generally run, or what I like to see is a greater emphasis in battle. Everybody goes there to play the games, and you already have a painting trophy and a sportsmanship trophy and a gaming trophy. So I like the breakdown of 50, 25, 25. So 25 for sports, 25 for paint, and 50 for the gaming aspect of it.
Yeah.
The way it was kind of broken down at 33, 33, 33 meant that because of how the sportsmanship scores were, it was fairly low in the grand scheme of things. And so a point of difference in the sportsmanship score was a hugely
compared to 5 points. It's the same as 5 points in like
battle score, and 5 points in battle score is a huge gulf. So kind of that, like just the change of the overall breakdown of things. But that's again like my opinion on it. If you want to reward other aspects of the hobby, you're welcome to.
I know Josh said he and Du Bois has typically done the third. And again, full respect to that. I think if you're going to keep that system, you got to score
out of 100 of each one,
exactly,
so that the difference is
so when you do favored votes or whatever or whatnot, it has to be at a higher value or whatnot, because every point of
difference is bigger in the sport.
So that and then
Dayton's here.
What up, Dayton? Otherwise, talking about prizes, I think, having been at the first Du Bois, I think not the first, but the previous Du Bois, one thing prizes wise that I would have loved to see, that was there that last time, was like, here we did like the first, second, third for best general. I would have loved to see best in faction. I love that. Just,
Yep. Call out to the
so you do a best general, and then again you take the people who win the top 4 prizes, which is like best sports, paint, general, and overall. Take them out of the equation, and then you do a best in faction. The other factions would have been really cool. I think, Carl, you probably would have ended best destruction.
No, actually, I wouldn't.
Right, because Caleb's brother, came second. Yeah. So he would have got that, but I got the third place trophy in the end, so I was happy with that. But it's just a nice way to see a couple extra trophies, a couple prizes.
I do like that one too. I really like the best.
Yeah. I
So
still rock the mug
yeah.
from
Oh
Red
yeah.
Harvest. I
Yeah.
drink out of it all the time.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. I have yeah, Best and Grand Alliance are really cool. Um I I had the so I don't know what happened with the trophies, but they had like tape over the number or the placing and it was written on. I don't know if there were some errors made, but my trophy had like third written on the tape. And it was a laser cut panel. And I pulled the tape off and it says second. So I actually came in second at Du Bois apparently. I have the second place trophy. So it's funny little quirk.
Yeah, yeah.
Um,
And kind of on the thoughts of terrain and how it should be handled. I think the terrain was I was largely very satisfied with it. It was very good overall. The only caveat I would put to that, the only kind of thing that detracts from it is I know you want or I this is kind of my inferring to Josh's thinking of it, having the player design tables as table 1 and table 2 because Chris Courtney's beautiful painted
yeah, Living
paintable
City
scenery.
or not Living
Yeah,
City? Yeah,
exactly. Was table 1, and then Emma's table, which was very fun to look at, and it was still a nice table, but it wasn't functionally the same.
Let me guess, Carl. It
very
wasn't competitive.
well. It wasn't. I think it wasn't
Just joking.
practical for playing on.
Sorry,
I,
it wasn't exactly, it wasn't the most practical to play on. So I was actually worried about playing on that table. Now I didn't play on that table, but I did watch some games be played on that table. Some of the players just agreed to remove the terrain altogether. So Dean, who both beat both Jordan and I, played Nick Walters
Mhm.
or Scooter with his 21 pig list, and they basically agreed to remove most of the terrain from the table because it was such big squares that the pigs, if you know what they do, they have such a large footprint, and if you're able to bring all of them to bear, like it will.
Impassable. I would just
Yeah,
make them all impassable. Like I'm just a big
Exactly.
fan of that.
Exactly,
yeah,
but again, it's an agreement between your opponent and yourself,
Yeah.
um, to do that, and they had that conversation. I did hear them have that conversation, so it was okay. But having a standardized table for maybe the not standardized, but have like some sort of like
making sure the
uh
top tables at least
correct the
are
top 5
practical.
tables. I mean, like all the players are important, and even the bottom tables are important. You want to have enjoyable tournament, but to be a
It is different
fair,
though if you're like fighting out for the win in round 5 versus
exactly.
fighting.
To be fair, like running 66 players, or 70 players, 35 tables is incredibly hard to design and have top end terrain
For
for
sure.
each.
Yeah,
So if you had like 5 or 6, the 5 or 6 tables at the very top end be very good. Kind of that'd be kind of my
yeah.
Yeah, just terrain rules in general, jankness, everything about it. It's like it's
But that's not
nice
come
to
from GW. I think like
well,
yeah.
that's what I mean. We're not going to get fixes to that. So if we can mitigate in any way, like what a giant tower that is this tall, you know what I mean? That you can't go onto the side of it. Like just conversations like that. I just would love for that to be
yeah,
cleaned up, but clearly it's not going to happen.
yeah,
So
yeah. That was my one wish in the new GHB or new edition was better terrain rules. Didn't get it. Marcel asked if any of us are going. The Canadians are going to Everwinter GT in Boston in December. We are not. Between
can't.
Red Harvest and then Du Bois, and then
And
we
then
have
London.
London this coming weekend. We've had a bunch, so it's I'm gonna one the border's not like fully open yet, so I wasn't going to do it anyways because it's another $150 to come into the
Yeah,
country or
PCR test. Yeah.
back into Canada. So we didn't commit to it or anything, and then just with the also combination of having a bunch of events kind of close together, which is
Yeah,
unfortunate that we had basically all 3 of our only local GTs, which including Du Bois, which was a 4-hour drive. We're all within like a month of the same month.
Yeah.
Yeah, we'll be at LVO though, so we'll see you there.
Yep. But yeah, hopefully once the border opens, we can hit up some more early next year. Rich can get his display board back at some point. and invite some of you guys over, come up to Canada as well. We have some great events here, especially our buddy Josh down in London or in Welland near the border runs a bunch of events down at Grot Gang with the Grot Gang, and I know he's talking about running some GTs and bigger events next year, team events. That'd be awesome. Get a team event right. It's close to Niagara Falls, so close for people to hop across the border. So
there's one last question that I want to answer. It's what would be your best tip for a player trying to get into competitive play or elevating their competitive play? That one I have a few. One is to stick with a list. Play as much as you can. Try to learn the ins and outs of that list, and then the rules of your army begins to melt away, and you get to start to think about the game itself. It becomes less about remembering your rules and more about what tactics can you do at certain situations. And number two is find somebody who is more experienced than you and play them repeatedly. So Jordan is one of the best players I know, hands down.
No.
And bashing my head against that man's fucking armies over and over and over has made me a wildly better player. And Rich has grown up from the worst player I knew to one of the best players I knew.
I don't think he was ever
no, he was the worst. So basically just throw yourself in the competition into competition. Find those players in your local area who are very experienced and very good, and play them over and over. And if you don't have that locally, go to TTS, even play. You will get destroyed. Yeah, hands down.
That look for those matchups.
Exactly.
And on that point, it's not the three of us and our team in general is all on similar skill levels, very similar skill levels. We all have the potential to, have a good run and go 5-0 at an event. We all have the potential to get two bad matchups and, go 3-2 or 2-3 or whatever, that's going to happen sometimes, but
learning from your mistakes is that's how
and actively learning. I think it was a great point earlier, that you guys said of okay, the dice rolls that could have changed the game, put those aside. Forget about those. Ignore those. Yep. Look at the game, ignore the dice rolls, and what could your play have done better? What could you have done better in your decision making? Because if you change those things, the dice rolls matter less and less and less, right?
Then at a certain day or a certain time, the decision, if you eliminate those decisions, the dice will fall in your favor.
Yeah. Or you're prepared if they don't.
Or they don't. Writes play Zinch. Or just or Seraphon, but a lot of Zinch and Seraphon, those armies are actually those armies you need to get lots of reps.
They're tough to play. Yeah, there's so many rules. There's so many
I would say Gargants if that's if you want a quick army to. But
there is something to be said about playing an army that plays in all the phases or isn't the top end of things, because you get to learn the game. For example, for myself, I played KO, and this is not to dissuade anyone from playing KO, but I played KO basically the length of 2.0. So my skills in piling in and charging and measuring those melee distances aren't as great as some other players. And so I'm now just catching up to kind of that skill level, and that's something I've had to learn. So.
There's a million. There's a
million things you can do.
Yeah, lots of reps, lots of practice, try and play against lots of different armies. And try and play great opponents.
Roll sixes.
Yeah. The last one, obviously, shameless self-plug. Watch our battle reports. I'm sure most people here already are, but that's the reason we started this channel was kind of founded on the fact that when I got started in tournaments, there wasn't any tournament kind of caliber games online to watch. There were from the Honest Wargamer Rob, and he makes amazing content and whatnot, but they're harder to digest at times because they're full length games. Can be a little tougher. So that's what why we've kind of evolved the format we have, with being able to go in depth, or you see everything in a more condensed package. You get all the tactics. It's the overhead camera. You see movement, so you can try and get a understanding of why we're doing different things, and then we recap. You obviously know why we're doing everything we do, and also now that we're introducing live format, we're hoping to give a little more in depth into like the moment to moment decision making that maybe doesn't get translated in our battle report. So you'll see actually tomorrow, Carl and I are playing a live game. I gotta get these 4 fulminators painted up and ready for Carl. So yeah,
And I
you'll
will
again see a
be
little more of the small moments.
I will be playing the Iron Jaws list that I played at the Boys. So if you would
Yes.
like to see me play it in full and kind of what I do,
Talking through things and whatnot.
talking through the things, yeah, you can tune in tomorrow and you can see me play that list.
And that's
What
tomorrow.
time?
Tomorrow at 7 p.m.
Eastern time.
Eastern time. Yeah, I tweeted out and I said it was 8, but that's wrong. It is 7. So yeah, you can
That's
see
really
that.
late.
Yeah. But I think that's pretty much it.
Yeah.
Want to say a big thank you to everyone for sticking around. Hope you enjoyed our kind of recap. And then again, continuing this shameless plugs. Right now, I'm working on this channel full time in terms of all the editing and production and everything that it takes to go into it. This is kind of a pilot project where hopefully my goal is in 2022 to hit the point where the channel is sustainable and do this long term. So if you enjoy the content, you want to get access to extra battle reports, vote on matchups, all that fun stuff, and help support the channel in the future, I encourage you to hit the join button, join our premium membership, trying to add more perks and stuff down the road, and always looking for feedback. So I want to make this channel good, and again, the goal in this coming year is basically I gotta be able to feed my wife and child after this by the end of the year. Otherwise, we'll have to figure something else out, and nobody wants that. Yeah. So, anyways, yeah, big thank you guys. Hope you enjoyed this, and I guess we'll see you soon in a new battle report.
See you, everyone.
Okay.